to Futurecast, the show where we decode tomorrow's business challenges through today's tech lens. I'm your host Jagrati, and today we have Nishant Sachdeva, Vice President of Digital Sales and Strategy at Compunnel. Let me give you some more insights about him. With over 2 decades of experience in IT services and digital strategy, Nishant has helped enterprises rethink how they innovate, scale, and stay resilient. Today, we'll dive into the practical insights on AI, automation, and what it really takes to future-proof business operations. Nishant, welcome to Futurecast.
Thank you very much, Jagrati. Really a pleasure joining this.
So, without any delay, let's start with what I believe is one of the biggest challenges most CIOs and CTOs face today is driving innovation without putting existing operation at risk. So Nishant, in your experience, what are some of the biggest mistakes technology leaders make when trying to strike the right balance between innovation and operational stability?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Jagrati. I think it's very critical and a big challenge because technology leaders start to balance out innovation and operational stability while fearing their competition in a most likely situation. They think that someone else is doing it, so they should do it too, or they are getting some peer pressure or leadership pressure because of which they start to utilize something that they're not ready for. And 70% of businesses fail because of the same reason. They start to replicate that model which they did not consume properly or understood in the first place, and they start to test the fidelity of it without strategizing. The major issue is that they don't have a complete understanding of even the ROI in those cases. And because of that, they don't capture the intent. They don't actually go ahead and check whether it would be valuable for their organization. And this leads to mismanaged expectations. This loses their focus or their team's focus after some time, and it becomes a mundane task that they have been trying out and it's not being successful. So that, I believe, is one of the key things that the stakeholders or the leadership team should be always aware of, that they should be realizing what their outcomes would be from that initiative, and then they should kind of take the battle on their shoulders.
That's a great perspective, Nishant. Now, that brings us to the topic that is impossible to ignore. AI and automation are transforming IT landscape. How do leaders determine what's worth investing in and what's just a hype?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point of view again, Jagrati, because today we are living in a world where almost everything you can imagine could probably be possible through AI. But most leaders have also started to understand that while AI is existent, it's not like a magic wand. It needs to be democratized, but at the same time, it needs to be overlapped with automation. And there would be certain element of human in the loop in majority of those cases. In AI's realm, automation is a separate entity altogether, but they do go hand in hand. And what has started to manufacture because of this, with both of them kind of coexisting in the space, is something that we call as intelligent automation. This is the next leap of transformation. AI helps you analyze and predict faster. Automation, on the other side, enables you to do things much more rampantly and easier. It brings scale. If we are talking about the nuances of this, it's always good to start with certain business objectives in mind, not just tech trends. And at the same time, it should also be governed with at least a 1 to 3 year ROI and a roadmap. That's the magic word in it. Adding to that, you should also be able to create demand expansibility or scale, and then how to control or mitigate any challenges that come in the way. Lastly, you have to look at certain pilots, which we call as act fast, fail fast model. So you pilot them, you check out their performance, and if they don't go in the right direction, then you take and consume the learnings, and then you react to it with better solutions or you pivot. That in itself kind of helps organizations become more mature in their point of views and leadership towards AI and automation through intelligences.
That's very insightful, Nishant. Now let's explore how organizations can take bold steps but in a calculated way. We often hear about act fast, fail fast in strategically mature organizations, but in today's fast-paced world, how could we organize better, but with a calculated risk, what actually looks like?
Sure. Very interesting point of view again, Jagriti. And at Compunnel, we believe in keeping strategy first, followed by execution. We call it the pre-mortem, not post-mortem. 90% of organizations would fail because they don't have the clarity in their vision. As soon as you do something, you start to see a lot of changes start to happen, the rubber hits the road kind of situation, and then you start to see and feel the pressure. So your efforts again start to fall through or break apart. Now, this typically would not happen if you have a structured sunset and scale path clearly defined. What it means is that you have predefined kill criteria of your existing or your current ecosystem and where it needs to stop and how you need to procure or onboard the new system. And then after you implement that successfully, you need to also have a scale criteria where for those initiatives, you need to be clear on the roadmap and how it's going to grow in the organization or get managed through change. If we keep certain KPIs clear and the thresholds with them, document those learnings, this process becomes much easier. The second thing is also connected with this, and it's to do with quantifying risk versus impact. So there are various frameworks in market that you can consume, including SWOTs of the world and RICE models, and something that we personally specialize in, which is design sprints. What it is that you can get the inside out, which is your organization's viewpoint, to outside your customer's viewpoint, and then your outside in, which is your customer's viewpoint, to your internal viewpoint, right? How it is being connected. And then you prototype, validate, and we do that all in less than 4 days. Followed by that, you need to also be clear on your roadmap, and you should follow a POC and MVP model for your approach, which means that you don't spend meaningful budgets just because you have decided on a roadmap or a path that is probably not current with your organization's goals. Long-term resilience is not a barrier to change. It is the foundation of meaningful, sustainable innovation. And that's the mantra we follow at Compunnel.
That was a good start, Nishant. Now let's move on. How economic uncertainty affecting IT budgets. Tech leaders are under pressure to deliver innovation while maintaining financial discipline. So how should a CIO and CTO ensure long-term resilience while driving meaningful change?
Excellent question again. I take it like this. Driving change without resilience is like upgrading the engine while ignoring the frame of the car. As we mature in this journey, some of the key things we should, or organizational leaders should keep in mind, is the way they adopt to certain principles, particularly with composable architecture. What it means is that we should be always looking at designing API first economies using modular approaches and being the true sense of agile that will allow us to rapidly reconfigure when business priorities shift. Another thing is that we should always avoid situations where we are locked into either vendors or platforms that would hinder our growth. One very critical part to this is how we are able to drive change through adaptive governance. And what it means is that we should blend agility with compliance. One should establish governance models internally and consume them in an organization that help innovate and create adaptive cycles, but still protect data, security, and any kind of regulatory or compliance related requirements should your organization have. Last but not the least, it's most critical to invest in people and make them resilient, because you want to focus on upskilling your current talent and at the same time have a psychology for safety, which means that the teams should not feel threatened with the change and the new additions that you're doing to your ecosystem. The leader should also be ready to face failure and consume that in a more productive and positive way. That imbibes in the teams and enables organizations to orchestrate and scale faster.
Exactly. Some companies adapt quickly while others don't. Let's unpack what separates them. Some organizations thrive during disruption while others struggle to survive. So, in your view, what are the characteristics or the traits organizations that thrive?
Yeah, going with the Rogers adoption life cycle of innovation, you would find that there are less than 3% people who are real innovators. And this is the same case with organizations and companies throughout the globe. The rest of the 50% of the bell curve is followed by the early adapters and early majority followers. In an essential world, you don't want to be on the last quadrant or the last end of the bell curve and be a laggard. So what I have seen personally is that majority of folks who have excelled at thriving during these disruptions have always been obsessed with customer signals. That's the outside in view, which I spoke about earlier. They generally keep operational and strategic foresight of what's happening and how can they consume that sentiment and grow faster. Additionally, they also have a nag for innovation. So in majority of these organizations, you will find that the key stakeholders or the leaders create a separate innovation hub, which is different than their core business. And this helps them keep that far-sighted view, test waters, like I said earlier, move through either a POC or an MVP model on certain requirements or initiatives, and then decentralize this particular wing that is doing it for them before they end up scaling their operations. And this enables them to change and act faster. This also provides them the cover fire should they need to triage or pivot from the requirements or the new initiatives that they have started to work on but are not going in the right direction. The last piece of this is on how they manage the change and keep continuous training as an element in their organization, because they both go hand in hand and they help you in frictionless transition as you venture out and scale in these operations.
Okay, so another challenge tech leaders face isn't budget constraints or technology, it's people. So, how a customer struggling because their project keep increasing over time, how can organization be more careful while adapting cutting edge technologies and still maintain a control over budgets, especially without any project failure? So, what's your view on this?
So interestingly, we have the fortune of working with a lot of uh, rescue projects. We have also seen then projects thrive. So typically, the customers face issues, and by the way, this number is more than 80%, where their budgets cross what they had anticipated, and they generally don't have control or good view of how to mitigate these challenges. Doing a strong business requirements review, or as we call it, maturity assessment, in many cases from current state to future state, is most essential. At Compunnel, we have mastered this approach of capturing and documenting your business requirements and specifications quickly. Majority of these complicated projects get procrastinated, or they get off-railed because they are not well planned, and the planning is in the documentation. In typical scenarios of such large end projects, even our model enables you to do the discovery and the assessment in less than 6 to 8 weeks' time. It gives you a complete roadmap. Typically, such initiatives that we run cover some of these critical objectives for organizations. A, an outcome-driven architecture, followed by we use progressive scoping for current to future state roadmap. We drive that entire engagement with a pilot first rather than prototyping only kind of approach that gives you more real life example of what you should be expecting in less than 2 to 3 weeks of your engagement. Another very critical part to this is establishing a tech investment into the governance of the program. And this essentially should be a part of discovery, not the aftermath of a bad project. Followed by your investment into or your understanding of FinOps and cost transparency, which is guided by the term of the project, the number of resources, and what eventually would be the ROI on it. Last but not the least is not forgetting the technical debt that you may have today and the cost of the overall, the total cost of ownership of the opportunity. So these elements become a coherent part of your discovery and analysis. And like I said earlier, we have really mastered this art by putting a pod size team, by the way, not putting, tens and 20s and maybe hundreds of people into the engagement. With the very pod size team, we are more execution oriented. So we get the job delivered and make you do or choose calculated decisions for your journey.
So that's a key point. But what I feel like, no strategy work without right people in place. So let's talk talent. Skill shortage is one of the biggest challenges in the market today. In your experience, what are some of the ways organizations can mitigate this talent gap effectively, and how Compunnel can help us in this?
Yeah. Skill gap will always remain a challenge. It has been for the past decade one of the most critical part to any transformation journey. And I believe the world is not changing anytime soon. the talent requirements and the right talent requirements will always be a critical requirement for organizations. We have the pleasure of working today with almost 30% of enterprises, with over 300 plus mid-market companies who have partnered with us and are active. With over 10,000 employees globally, 50,000 plus contractors, a network of over 3.5 million resources, and 2,500 recruiters on board with us, we have really championed the art of providing the right skills at the right time, at the right cost, and in the most flexible way to our clients. We offer our no obligation and flexible core flex models to help organizations quickly ramp up and ramp down on team sizes, by the way, with various skill sets without any long-term commitments. We have these tailored to your needs, so there is no one shoe fits all kind of requirement that can suffice to these problems. And we could talk more about those should you be interested in seeing the value that we bring to the table. And I'd be happy to have a deep dive into that in a follow-up conversation.
So Nishant, hiring and scaling are half of the story. The other half is how flexible those engagements can be. Let's get into that. So many technology leaders often struggle with flexibility in their engagement models. They find it hard to predict cost or hire expensive resources quickly. In some of the cases we have seen, after paying $100 to $200 per hour, customers don't get the desired result. How does Compunnel help organizations or customers overcome this challenge?
Fantastic. Now you're making me wear my sales hat, and I love this. The biggest thing with us is integrity and transparency. From day one, we disclose our rate card, our models, governance, our predictability in terms of how we would orchestrate and manage your projects clearly to our customers. We don't like or believe in giving you sticker shocks or procrastinating projects just because it's going to make us earn a couple of extra bucks. Another thing we do is that every part of our journey is measured by performance and outcome. We don't give you cookie cutter models where we tell you, hey, you're going to do these 5 tasks and you have to pay us this X amount of money. So we tailor it to make sure that it's outcome driven and there is excitement created in the organizations because we act as your team extension. One of the ways we have really strategized ourselves effectively in this is, like I said earlier, through our core flex model, which is tailored every time to fit into the customer needs. And it is governed also by a cost of project management or program governance by Compunnel. It helps you reduce time to market. It helps you reduce time to hire and onboard. And it helps you on your deliverables from day one. And all of this is mapped out cautiously during our SOWs, our MSAs, and it is like putting the leash in your hands or customer hands to get the job done. Again, I would be more than excited to take you through that journey and give you the answers should you be interested in exploring these opportunities. And I can tell you there are various areas of development, right from applications, cloud, data, AI, and product engineering that we have championed across the table. And I would love to take you through our journey and give you our value propositions during a next level call.
So that's a wrap on this episode of Futurecast. Thank you, Nishant Sachdeva, for sharing your expertise and vision with us. If you found this episode and this conversation insightful, don't forget to like, share this episode, and visit us at www.compunnel.com. Stay curious, stay future ready. Thank you.